My name is Natalie Prescott, 35 years old, Regional Marketing Director for Asia Pacific at a tech conglomerate in Silicon Valley. I had just wrapped up a long business trip in Munich, my head still caught between time zones and massive campaign numbers. We live in San Jose, in a modern house with large glass doors overlooking palm trees and a small pool. I had written my resignation letter, at the suggestion of Grayson, my husband, to focus on family, on a pregnancy plan he said was about time. Grayson Prescott, my husband, 40, is a vice president at a fast growing fintech company. When I met him 8 years ago, I was drawn to his calmness and ambition. I thought we complemented each other perfectly. I was energetic, creative. He was steady, reliable. But lately, my husband seemed to be changing. Apex Forge Fitness. Almost every day, 2 hours, Pilates, cardio, sauna. Grayson said the gym helped him relieve stress, stay in shape. I just nodded. Outsiders would call that discipline, self-care. But me, with 12 years in marketing, used to living by instinct and subtle irregular signals, I called it a pattern that needed to be tested. So I decided to quit my job to reduce stress, focus on taking care of the family, and mend our marriage that was slowly growing cold. I got home early at 6:15 p.m. The house was dark. Grayson wasn't back yet. I set my bag down and opened our shared calendar on my phone. Tuesday, his gym day. Back in the house, still dark, I checked the calendar again. Today was his gym day. I planned to stop by Apex Forge Fitness to pick him up at 8 p.m., then grab a light dinner together, a small midweek surprise. When I went back to the garage, my SUV wouldn't start. The warning light blinked. I tried again. Still nothing. I stood there for a few seconds, then took Grayson's Tesla key. The car was so clean, it felt sterile. A faint vanilla scent, mixed with an expensive perfume I don't use. The gym parking lot was still bright. The California late afternoon sun reflected off car windows, palm trees casting long shadows. Through the floor-to-ceiling glass, I saw rows of treadmills, people pedaling furiously going nowhere, electronic music echoing with lyrics about eternal love and perfect bodies. I hadn't even found a parking spot when a security guard approached. Tall, buzz-cut, friendly demeanor. His name tag read Darius. He waved and called out, "Mr. Prescott, your wife sent this for you." He held up a navy blue gym bag. I rolled down the window. The bag blocked Darius's view as he continued, "Mr. Prescott, your wife brought it this morning, said you forgot it." "Your wife brought it?" I repeated. Only then did Darius realize my voice wasn't right. Before he could get flustered, I quickly explained that I was an assistant bringing the car to him. "Yes, his wife brought it this morning, said he forgot it." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. His wife. I am his wife. I didn't correct him, didn't ask anything else. I smiled. The polite smile I'd used hundreds of times in meetings when I wasn't ready to flip the cards. "Thank you." I parked, cracked the window open to let the warm California air in. The bag sat still on the passenger seat, small but suddenly heavy, as if carrying secrets I wasn't ready to face. For a moment, I told myself to just take it inside, pretend I knew nothing, wait for Grayson. But the instinct that had gotten me through high-stakes presentations was now screaming. I unzipped it. Inside were sweat towels, a facial mist spray, a wireless charger, and a boxed pair of Garmin watches. One men's, one women's. At the bottom was a black lace thong that was clearly not mine. Underneath was a hotel receipt. The name on the receipt? My husband. The address, 10 minutes drive from the gym. The steady hum of the air conditioning suddenly felt hollow. My heart didn't race. It sank, like a stone dropping into a deep lake. I folded everything back into its original place, not shifted, not a trace left behind. Zipped the bag shut. Then I sat there for a long time, watching people go in and out of the gym, laughing, carefree, unaware that inside a car parked along the curb, a marriage had just cracked without making a sound. 8:16 p.m. Grayson walked out, his hair still damp, phone in hand, his face lit up in a way I knew very well. Not tired, but satisfied. Too satisfied. "Where's your car?" he asked, cheerful. Maybe more cheerful than necessary. "It wouldn't start," I replied evenly. "I took your Tesla. Hope that's okay." He blinked. A quick smile. "Of course. Why were you waiting out here? You could have texted. I'd have come right out." "I like the view," I said, lifting the gym bag. "A security guard said your wife dropped this off this morning." That smile froze for just a fraction of a second, so fast most people would miss it. I didn't. "Wife?" he repeated, tilting his head slightly. "Yeah," I went on, as if recounting something perfectly ordinary. "He said your wife stopped by." Grayson let out a light laugh, thin and rushed. "Must be a misunderstanding. People joke like that here all the time. Trainers, members, it's all pretty loose." I nodded slowly, as if I believed him completely. "Yeah, probably." We drove home. The radio played softly, a news program talking about interest rates and markets. Harmless words filling the space between us. Grayson rested his phone on his thigh, his fingers scrolling nonstop, as if it were his last remaining source of oxygen. A message flashed up as another car's headlights swept across the dashboard. "Avery." I said nothing, just watched the light reflect off his wedding ring, the one he had never taken off. That night, Grayson fell asleep quickly. I sat in the kitchen, all the lights off, poured myself a glass of red wine. I opened the gym bag again, took out the two watches, set them side by side. The second hands swept smoothly, cold, unhurried. I had read countless plans, made decisions under far greater pressure than this. And I knew one thing very clearly. You don't act until you understand the entire picture. I didn't feel angry. Anger is chaos. And I was too tired for chaos. That night, I made a very quiet decision. I would not scream, not confront him blindly. I would gather information. You don't throw away an entire marriage over a single lie. The next morning, the house smelled of freshly brewed coffee. San Jose sunlight slanted through the kitchen window. Grayson was upstairs, getting ready for work, moving slower than usual. Maybe tired, maybe thinking. Hard to tell. Liars and truth-tellers walk the same way. The difference is only in the silence. I finished my coffee, changed clothes, and called a ride back to Apex Forge Fitness. The morning was quieter. A few older people, a few stay-at-home moms wrapping up yoga. Yesterday's security guard was still there, holding an iced coffee. "Morning," he recognized me. "Your boss forget something again?" "No," I smiled. "Yesterday I was driving and accidentally clipped a white Porsche. I wanted to find the owner to apologize." Darius grinned. He didn't hesitate. "White Porsche, on yesterday's training day here. That would be Mr. Prescott's wife's car, Avery." "Avery," I repeated, memorizing the way the name landed, and the license plate as Darius confirmed it. "She's pretty young, 26, he added. "She and Mr. Grayson. They look very happy." I thanked him and left. Happy. That word lingered. It usually means someone has forgotten where home is. When I got back, I dialed a number I hadn't used in months. "Natalie," the voice on the other end said, familiar in a strange way. "Reed, my childhood friend, now working private security for several major tech companies. Discreet, meticulous, doesn't ask much." "Reed," I said. "Long time? You still take surveillance jobs?" A brief pause. "For who?" "A woman named Avery. I only have a license plate. I need everything. Schedule, relationships, receipts. Keep it quiet. Reed was silent for a second. She crossing a line with Grayson? I hope not. Reed let out a soft laugh. Give me 4 days. 4 days later, I met Reed again at a small cafe near downtown San Jose. He arrived right on time, carrying a tablet. He set the iPad down on the wooden table. Faster than I thought. I leaned in toward the screen. The first photo, Grayson and Avery at a wine bar in Los Gatos. A candle in the middle of the table, his hand resting over hers with practiced ease. Another shot, them strolling through Santana Row, his arm brushing lightly around her waist. Timestamp, Saturday afternoon last week. She's 26, Reed said. Grayson's administrative assistant at Vanguard Labs, hired less than a year ago. Previously warned at her last company for an inappropriate relationship with a supervisor. I stared at the screen, jaw tight, but said nothing. This part will interest you more, he continued, swiping to the next image. Hotel receipts, weekend stays, check-in Friday afternoon, check-out Sunday morning. Efficient, I said. Reed looked up at me. So what now? You going to blow it up or build a plan? I took a sip of coffee, bitter but clarifying. You know me, I replied. Collect first, act later. That night, I opened the publicly available HR policy page for Vanguard Labs on the company website. Midway through section 7.4, romantic or personal relationships between supervisors and direct reports are strictly prohibited. Violations will result in immediate termination. It was there in black and white, written by people who had seen this story repeat itself too many times. Grayson came home humming, gym bag slung over his shoulder. He kissed my cheek. Have you eaten? He asked. Yeah, I replied. Good workout? Best this month? He smiled broadly, that private smile I used to know so well, then pulled out his phone, skimmed a few messages, and slipped it away. After dinner, he sat watching the news while I sat across from him, pretending to read documents. The glow from his phone lit up his face. Each time a new message came in, the corner of his mouth lifted slightly. A smile not meant for me. When Grayson went upstairs to sleep, I stayed in the living room, turned off the TV. On the table, I placed the tablet face down. The evidence was complete. No need to review it again. I already knew which card I would play. I texted my old friend a short line. Thanks. When you're free, dinner's on me. He replied almost immediately. Another time. So, what's your next step? Something clean, I wrote back. Something certain. That's the Natalie I know, he replied with a brief icon. With all the evidence neatly in hand, I began the phase we call market segmentation in marketing, but here it was financial segmentation. I didn't storm in like a hurricane, didn't scream, "You cheated on me," and smash things. No. I chose quiet, calculated movements, like a long-term campaign. Before bed, I opened my email and drafted a short message, proper, emotionless, sent to Grayson's company's HR department. I said I had information regarding a serious internal violation and wished to discuss it directly. No threats, no drama. Just the truth placed where it belonged. When I hit send, I felt a very soft click inside my chest, like the sound of a lock snapping shut. I called the insurance company, my voice as calm as if I were placing an online order. I'd like to remove my name from the joint policy with Grayson Prescott. Yes, just him remaining. They confirmed by email, and I did the same with the secondary guarantees. Next, I opened my banking app and created a new personal account, under the name Natalie Prescott only, with no Ann Grayson attached. The screen flashed its confirmation, and I felt a small current of freedom seep in, like breathing fresh air after a Silicon Valley rain. The next step was redirecting the cash flow. My monthly salary from work, the quarterly bonus I'd just received, freelance income from independent marketing projects, all of it was rerouted to the new account. I did it in a few clicks, as quick and clean as editing a PowerPoint slide. Grayson wouldn't notice right away, because he had never paid attention to financial details. He only knew how to spend. I thought about those mornings when he grinned and said, "You handle it, I've got meetings," while I sat there balancing the household budget. Now, he would have to learn to handle it himself. I didn't forget to save the evidence. Every hotel receipt, every expensive dinner in Palo Alto, even the receipt for the matching watches from Nordstrom. Everything was printed, scanned, and stored in a separate Google Drive folder, protected by a password only I knew. I sat there under the cold blue glow of the screen, flipping through each receipt, seeing every number clearly. $327 for a romantic dinner, $150 for a bottle of wine. Our money I had earned, flowing straight into his mistress's pockets. By midnight, I had a plan. Not the kind of plan that involves calling a lawyer through tears, the one well-behaved wives are expected to choose. This was a Natalie plan, the kind made by someone who had once stood in front of a room full of executives and convinced them to double the marketing budget in the middle of a recession, and I knew it would be far more effective. I slept surprisingly well that night. The next morning, when I woke up, Grayson was already gone. He called to say we'd meet in person at the company Christmas party that evening. Another busy day at the office. I told him I was looking forward to it, in the same sincere tone I usually reserve, for thanking my mother-in-law for a Christmas gift so ugly it's unusable. Sitting in the breakfast nook, sipping hot coffee, I watched a group of women from the neighborhood power walk past the house, all in matching athleisure, wireless earbuds in, looking like pre-programmed copies. I thought about myself. If I hadn't discovered Grayson's affair, that would have been my future. Trading boardroom presentations for PTA meetings, swapping strategy sessions for meal planning. And for what? So Grayson could live out the most boring cheating cliché on the planet. I spent the entire day preparing. Hair done. I chose a classic black Armani dress, modest enough not to be called showy, bold enough to be impossible to ignore. I painted my nails a deep red, a color I rarely wear because it's too loud. But tonight, I had no intention of being quiet. Vanguard Labs' annual Christmas party at Delmare was exactly the kind of event that makes you want to laugh and leave at the same time. Men in nearly identical suits pretending this year's 8-figure bonuses were just okay, while their wives compared vacation homes and cosmetic surgeons in the same breath. I arrived fashionably late, by design. Here, that meant exactly 17 minutes after the time printed on the invitation. Early enough not to seem aloof, late enough to make everyone look. The valet glanced at my old car with a hint of disappointment, the look reserved for vehicles that haven't crossed the 6-figure threshold. He didn't know that the most valuable thing I brought tonight wasn't the car, but what was in the trunk. The ballroom was decorated in what I can only call corporate Christmas, glittery enough to feel festive, neutral enough not to offend anyone. A nearly 10-foot-tall tree, drenched in silver and blue ornaments, the brand colors, dominated one corner of the room. On the tables, ice sculptures shaped like dollar signs melted slowly. Subtle. Very subtle. I spotted Grayson immediately. It's an instinct only wives understand, the ability to locate your husband in a crowded room, especially when he's standing far too close to a woman 10 years younger. Grayson stood near the bar, one hand gesturing confidently as he explained some financial strategy, the other resting far too comfortably on Avery's back, right where the dress dipped low. Avery wore a dress that looked like it had swallowed an entire month of her salary, gazing up at Grayson with the kind of admiration usually reserved for pop idols or religious figures. Before I even had the chance to call out to Grayson, Ms. Elena Vasquez, the head of human resources at Vanguard Labs, spotted me and waved me over. We'd met a few times at previous events. "Natalie, there you are," she laughed as I approached. Well into her 60s, she still carried the energy and projecting voice of a true leader. Grayson was just telling us about the new project with Robertson Capital. "Sounds very impressive," I smiled, my eyes flicking toward Grayson just long enough for him to falter slightly. He's been working so much lately, so many late nights at... Grayson cleared his throat. Just doing what needs to be done. Of course, I replied sweetly, then turned to Avery, who was hovering nearby with an iPad, playing the role of the devoted assistant. Avery, you look lovely tonight. That dress is beautiful. Thank you, Mrs. Prescott, she replied, at least decent enough to blush. I just got it at Nordstrom. Excellent choice, I said. Grayson has always appreciated women who know how to optimize their resources. Right, honey? Grayson loosened his tie slightly. Natalie, Mrs. Thompson wanted to meet you. I just mentioned you'd resigned from your old company. A classic diversion. Grayson had always been good at steering conversations away from discomfort, a skill that no doubt helped him juggle wife and mistress. I'd be happy to, I said. But first, I'd like to give Avery something. A small gift, I added. A personal thank you. Ms. Vasquez clapped her hands. Natalie is always so thoughtful. That's why everyone likes her. If only she knew how thoughtful I was about to be. Avery, could you come to your desk for a moment? I brought something I think will be useful for your position. Grayson's expression shifted from annoyance to panic. Natalie, maybe later. Just a minute. I linked my arm through Avery's gently but firmly, leaving Grayson with no choice but to watch us walk away or cause a scene in front of Ms. Vasquez and several board members weighing his professional future. The executive office area was on the top floor, open during the party so guests could enjoy the nighttime bay view. A few couples stood out on the balcony, admiring the December lights shimmering on the water. Mrs. Prescott, is everything okay? Avery asked as we reached her meticulously arranged workstation. A framed photo of the company's leadership team sat beside the computer, Grayson's face prominent in the center. That depends on how you define okay, I replied, setting my handbag on the desk. Tell me, Avery, do you know what day it is today? She blinked her professionally applied false lashes. Friday, December 20th. Correct, I nodded. And it's also the 6th anniversary of my wedding. An anniversary my husband forgot because he was too busy texting you about the dress you're wearing. Avery went pale. Mrs. Prescott, please don't misunderstand. I didn't. Don't! I cut her off. The innocent act isn't necessary, and it doesn't suit either of us. I opened my bag and pulled out a mesh laundry pouch. You know, besides handling marketing to support Grayson, I take on many roles. One of them is laundry. I tipped the bag upside down. Dirty underwear spilled across Avery's desk, draped over the keyboard, the notebook, and the neatly arranged company pens. 6 years of marriage, reduced to a few stained briefs and sweat-soaked undershirts of Grayson's. On top lay Avery's black lace thong, the one I'd found in his gym bag. Since you've been handling so many of my husband's personal matters, I said as Avery stared in horror at the items now decorating her workspace, I think you should handle his laundry too. Oh, and this one, I added, is yours. Hand wash it. Lace tears easily. By now, a small group had gathered. The executive office area is rarely open like this, and curiosity has its own pull. Guests passing by didn't miss the chance to look in, and what they saw was dirty laundry, in the most literal sense, spread across the secretary's desk. What the hell is going on here? Grayson charged in, his face flushed red from anger or humiliation, most likely both. Ms. Elena Vasquez followed right behind him with 3 board members and their wives. Just returning items to their rightful owner, I said cheerfully. I figured she wouldn't mind getting her things back. Ms. Vasquez stared at the lace underwear on the desk, then at Grayson, her silver eyebrows lifting in surprise. Grayson, one board member spoke up. What exactly is she talking about? I pulled out my phone and held up the screen, showing everyone a fairly explicit message thread between my husband and his secretary. Would you like me to read it out loud, or would you prefer I email this straight to the entire board? The room fell so silent, you could hear the jazz music drifting up from downstairs. Grayson stepped closer to me, his voice low. Natalie, you're making a scene. No, Grayson, I replied, loud enough for everyone to hear clearly. You're the one who made a scene by sleeping with your secretary instead of going to the gym like you said. I'm just rearranging the stage to match the truth. One board member's wife spoke up. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. Why privately? I asked. My husband didn't keep it private. Even a security guard thought she was his wife. So why should I? Ms. Elena Vasquez turned to Grayson and the three board members, spoke to them briefly, her tone calm but allowing no argument, then gestured for him to follow. Grayson frowned, forced a stiff smile at a few nearby guests, and went after her. The glass doors closed, the automatic blinds sliding down. 12 minutes passed, slow as torture. People kept stealing glances toward the meeting room door, the heaviness in the air spreading. Avery still stood frozen by her desk. The smile on her lips had vanished. I was leaning against the wall, composed. Avery stepped toward me, her voice low and trembling. Mrs. Natalie, why did you do this? Just making sure company policy is enforced, I replied. Her eyes darted toward the meeting room. You talked to Ms. Vasquez? Yes. It seems the company takes professional ethics very seriously, Avery whispered, her eyes reddening. You humiliated me. No, I said softly. You humiliated yourself. She moved closer, her voice breaking. You have no right. I have every right. I met her gaze. Because my husband used our joint money to support you. I left the executive floor without waiting for Grayson. He would probably need time to clear out his things. I walked straight down to Delmare's main lobby, where the jazz music still drifted softly, as if nothing had happened. Warm lights reflected off half-finished champagne glasses on the tables, but the atmosphere had changed, whispers spreading like ripples. I stopped at the reception desk and took a second gym bag out of my handbag, identical to the one Grayson always carried to work out, navy blue, with the Apex Forge Fitness logo neatly embroidered in the corner. Inside, I had arranged everything carefully. Our old wedding photo, both of us smiling brightly under the California sun. A printed copy of the HR policy, with the clause banning supervisor-subordinate relationships highlighted in yellow, and a handwritten note from me. Every place has rules. Marriage does too. The receptionist looked at me with curiosity, but I just smiled and said, When Grayson comes down later, could you give this to him for me? Tell him it's a late Christmas gift from his wife. She nodded and set the bag aside. I turned and walked out through Delmare's front doors. The December night in San Jose was cool, a light bay breeze lifting my hair. I didn't look back. 1 week after the Christmas party, I received an email from Ms. Elena Vasquez, Director of Human Resources at Vanguard Labs. I opened it while sitting at my home workspace. The content was professionally cold. Dear Ms. Natalie Prescott, we hereby confirm that the matter involving a serious violation of company policy has been fully addressed in accordance with proper procedure. Mr. Grayson Prescott's employment has been terminated. Ms. Avery Quinn has also submitted her resignation and departed the company on the same day. The Board of Directors appreciates your discretion and sense of responsibility in choosing to resolve the matter internally. This helped protect Vanguard Labs' reputation and avoid unnecessary impact on our staff. We wish you and your family a peaceful holiday season. Sincerely, Elena Vasquez, Director of Human Resources. I finished reading. I didn't reply. Some emails don't require a response because their purpose has already been fulfilled. Reed texted shortly after. He still keeps the habit of updating me on the aftermath, like a meticulous old friend. Avery moved out of her Mountain View apartment last weekend. Neighbors said they saw her loading things into a small U-Haul, head down, not greeting anyone. Not much stuff. Probably just clothes and a few personal boxes. Heard she's heading back to Seattle, where she has relatives. As for Grayson, he's still in our house, the house that now has only my name on the mortgage. He didn't dare go back to his old office to collect personal items, So the company mailed everything: a few framed family photos, a Vanguard Labs logo coffee mug, and a stack of business cards that are now worthless. One evening, I saw him sitting at the kitchen table, flipping through the cards under the warm pendant light, then quietly dropping them into the trash. He said nothing, only the soft tear of paper and a restrained sigh. The company officially closed the case. No scandal in the tech press, no articles on the Information or TechCrunch, just a brief internal notice about a senior leadership change. Everything clean, discreet, just as they thanked me for. But I know that in Vanguard Labs glass corridors, during coffee breaks in the pantry, people still whisper about the fateful Christmas party, about the black lace underwear on a desk, about the woman who walked out of Delmare calmly, carrying a marriage that had just fallen apart. 2 weeks after the party, Grayson finally begged, "Natalie, I was wrong. Don't divorce me. I'll change, I swear." We were sitting in the kitchen, the Silicon Valley afternoon sun streaming through the large glass doors, falling onto the cold granite countertop. He looked at me with a desperation I had never seen in a man who had always been so confident. "Natalie, what do you want?" Grayson asked. "Just tell me. What will make this go away?" And that was when I realized, with Grayson, everything had always had a price. He had lived his entire life figuring out what other people wanted, then calculating whether he could afford to pay for it. "What I want," I said slowly, "is something you can't promise with words." He frowned. "What are you talking about?" "Since we got married," I said, "I've been running this life, the schedules, the social ties, the cash flow, the family image, while you built your career on top of a system you never directly operated." Grayson started to object. I raised my hand. "This is not a debate." I stood up and walked to the built-in desk in the kitchen. From a drawer, I took out a manila folder. "This is the only option I'm considering," I said. "Not because of forgiveness, but because of risk control." He stared at the folder like it was something foreign. "It's not divorce papers?" he asked. "Not yet," I replied, "but it makes divorce very easy if needed." Grayson opened it, read, fell silent. There were no romantic words, no capitalized hope, just structure, roles, responsibilities, consequences. "You will take full responsibility for running the household," I said, "not as penance, but to understand the value of the things you once took for granted." "And you?" he asked. His voice changed. "I go back to work, full time." Grayson closed the folder. "You've already decided?" "I decided the day you chose the gym over home." A long silence followed. Then he asked very softly, "What if I don't sign?" "Then nothing you do will remain private." I paused, placed my hand on my stomach. "And because there is another life involved, I'm giving you until Monday morning." I left him sitting there, staring at the documents that could redefine our marriage if he chose to save it. Upstairs, I closed the bedroom door and, for the first time, allowed myself a moment of doubt. For 2 weeks, I had been running on adrenaline and justified anger. The strategist in me had taken control. But now, in the quiet room, I placed my hand on my stomach, where the pregnancy test that morning had shown 2 dark pink lines. I was pregnant, the child we had once tried to have, before everything fell apart. That was why I didn't choose divorce immediately. I just wanted to give all of us one chance. Monday morning arrived with an early winter chill sharp enough to make you pull your coat tighter. I stood in front of the closet. The one Grayson used to joke was bigger than our first apartment, and looked at my options with entirely new eyes. Today called for corporate armor. I chose a charcoal gray suit, clean lines, decisive. Over the weekend, Grayson had rotated between sulking in the home office and clumsy attempts at reconciliation, a hastily bought supermarket bouquet, an offer to talk it out over dinner. I refused both. My time was spent locking strategy with Lila and reorganizing my professional wardrobe. When I came downstairs, Grayson was standing there, holding the folder I'd given him days earlier. His signature was fresh, the ink barely dry. He looked like someone attending his own funeral. "I signed," he said unnecessarily. "Good," I replied, taking the papers back with a polite smile. "Satisfaction isn't the goal here, Grayson. Responsibility is." He loosened his tie, the burgundy Hermes I'd given him last Christmas. "So, what's next?" "Housekeeping," I said, as casually as reading a to-do list. "There's a food tray in the fridge, baking instructions taped to the lid. Dry cleaning needs to be picked up before noon. The house needs to be clean. Dinner ready by 7. The Mitchells are coming over." Grayson froze. "Dinner with the Mitchells tonight?" "Yes," I said. "I accepted a position at Mitchell Creative. We're celebrating." I slung my new briefcase over my shoulder. "I've already added it to your calendar. The one you usually only open when booking hotel rooms with assistants half your age." "I can't drop everything to do domestic work," he tried to protest, following me toward the garage. I turned back. "Funny. That's exactly what you asked me to do for years. Work and carry all of this, too." I rested a hand lightly on my stomach. "I'd like you to get used to it before our child arrives." I opened the car door, checked my lipstick in the rearview mirror. "Good luck." I got into the car. Behind me, Grayson still stood there, holding the folder that had become his voluntary sentence, watching me drive away, for the first time realizing that the entire life infrastructure he'd taken for granted now rested squarely on his shoulders. By noon, Grayson began noticing things he'd never seen before. The list taped to the fridge was longer than he expected. The dry cleaning account was in my name. The food tray was overbaked. Milk spilled on the floor. Water spots left in the bathroom. Grayson stood in the middle of the kitchen, hands slick with dish soap, eyes dazed like someone who'd just discovered an underground city beneath his feet. Meanwhile, at Mitchell Creative, I walked into the conference room to open notebooks and waiting eyes. I talked about brand, about story, about what needed to be stripped away and what had to be rebuilt. No one asked if it was convenient. They asked why. And they listened. By afternoon, I'd approved the direction for a new campaign and scheduled meetings with 3 potential clients. Grayson texted, asking how to reschedule a dentist appointment, then asked whose name the dry cleaning was under. I didn't reply right away, not out of anger, but because some lessons need time to sink in. That evening, I got home at 6:45. The house looked like it had just been through a strong gust of wind. Not quite chaos, but clearly new territory for someone learning how to run it. Grayson stood there, exhausted, silent. On the table was a dinner that was edible. Not perfect, but effort was there. "The food tray burned," he reported, pointing to the charred pan in the sink. "Delightful," I said, setting my bag down. "The Mitchells will be here in 15 minutes. "I know," his voice pitched higher. "I ordered pizza, but they said it might be late, and I can't find the nice napkins." I poured myself a glass of red wine. The bottle Grayson had opened rather badly, judging by the cork fragments floating on top. "The nice napkins are in the cabinet by the dining room," I said. "Second drawer on the left, behind the placemats. Candles are there, too." I took a sip. The doorbell rang before Grayson could say anything else. "That's the Mitchells," I said cheerfully. "You might want to change your shirt. There's what looks like marinara on your collar." Grayson bolted upstairs. I opened the door to Lila and Curtis, both smiling like they just won the lottery. "So how's day 1 of the family rehabilitation program?" Curtis asked, handing me a proper bottle of wine. "Very good," I replied. "For both sides." Lila glanced around the slightly disordered house. "Looks like he manages household work about as well as he managed fidelity." "He's learning," I said, taking the Sephora bag Lila handed me. "Sometimes growth requires an entire old system to collapse." Curtis nodded. "I can see the marketing strategist in you getting sharper." I winked and led them into the disaster zone, where Grayson was frantically setting the table, hiding dishes, and trying to create order out of chaos. Watching my husband, the man who once lectured me on the importance of a housewife, struggle with daily life, gave me a feeling no therapy session could match. I realized it right then. The best revenge isn't just living well. It's letting the person who once underestimated you sit in the front row and watch your rebirth. 1 year later, everything is stable, not happy, stable. I gave birth to Luna on a cold morning. Grayson was there, on time, no theatrics. He learned how to be a father the same way he once learned finance. Slowly, with lots of checklists, very little visible emotion. But he showed up. I went back to work, not to prove anything, simply because it's where I function best. Grayson stayed home, not as punishment, but because that is a condition of this structure. We didn't go back to what we were. We became two adults raising a child together, within a clearly controlled system. One evening, after Luna had fallen asleep in her walnut crib, Grayson and I sat on the living room sofa, warm yellow light washing over the new family photos on the wall. He looked at me, his voice lower now, the old confidence gone, replaced by genuine humility. Natalie, I used to think I was the center of everything. My career, our family, even your life. But I was wrong. My biggest mistake was not recognizing your true value and everything you sacrificed. I nodded, fingers tightening slightly around my cup of herbal tea. Marriage isn't a power game, Grayson. It's balance, where both people support each other, not one sacrificing so the other can rise. You understand that now, don't you? He exhaled, eyes drifting to Luna on the baby monitor screen. I do, and I'm grateful you gave me a chance to make it right. That conversation stretched late into the night, not an argument, but an honest sharing about the power imbalance that once defined our marriage, about old wounds now scarred over, and about a future where we would raise Luna as partners, side by side. Some relationships don't need to end, but they don't need to be saved either. They just need to be put in the right place. I turned off the light, closed the bedroom door, and for the first time in a very long while, I knew one thing for certain. It wasn't that I won. It wasn't that he lost. It was simply that I no longer traded myself away to hold together a structure that had been wrong from the start.